This is a 2014 Arctic Cat 1000 XT. It's in my garage now just for like kind of a general maintenance type setup. And anyway, there's a drive shaft that goes from the engine to the front end. This would be the front differential right here. And you can see, if we get down in here, you can see those U-joints right next to the oil filter right there. And one of those U-joints, this rear one, is smoked. It's absolutely gone basically. So anyway, to get that, I think you have to pull the, well, you got to pull the differential out, I think, to actually do that. Which, to get the differential out, you have to pull the front end or the front suspension out. So anyway, we're gonna start digging into this at least to get that changed and see what else we encounter along the way. Alright, so now with the wheel off, basically we have to disconnect all these suspension components. So the shock top and bottom needs to be taken loose, and then the brake needs to come off because we don't want to re-bleed this thing. So we're just gonna try and leave the brakes hooked up. But basically this stuff needs to get moved out of the way so that we can get the axles pulled, so that we can get the differential pulled, so that we can get that U-joint replaced. Alright, so I got the shock removed from up top. And right here, the shock goes between here. Got that removed. And then now this is just sitting like this, so you don't want to let it go down too far because basically it'll end up hanging on the brake line. So now I'm going to undo this caliper from the suspension setup. So there's 2 bolts on the back here that'll let this whole caliper come loose, and then we'll just probably take these lines out and just have it so it can hang on its own. Alright, so I just hung the hose and the brake line just really relaxed here up top. And so now we can continue with this suspension, and with the brake undone, now it's all just free to move, and we just need to take these links apart. So I think probably the easiest way here is to actually just take the A-arms loose and the tie rod, either out here or out there, and then pull this whole thing off together because I don't really want to take this whole knuckle apart just for fun. So anyway, we're gonna start doing some stuff. Okay, so now that these 2 A-arms are undone, now I can just pull this axle out. Alright, so off camera I was jostling with this, my camera quit, but what happens here is you're supposed to push in and then pull this cup out after it's disengaged. Well, anyway, the jostling of it all, it actually pulled this out to where now this portion of the axle is disengaged from the stub shaft. And so I can't find where that hole is inside there to, get everything lined up again. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this one clamp, and I'll just replace this clamp really quick, and we'll toss some fresh grease in here and everything will be fine. But for right now, I just can't figure out how this all works. So I'm just going to take this apart and have a look. Alright, so I got all the axle out of here now. Basically, you got to push in with the axle, and then while you're doing that, get like a pry bar or something here to like counteract and push back, and that's how that comes out. Not too bad of a deal. We may end up taking this bar off too, but for right now, that'll be fine. I'm going to go to the other side and catch up. Alright, now that the suspension is off on both sides, I'm going to try and get up in here, and you can see that there's a little bolt back in there with a little cotter pin on it right there. That is where this steering arm attaches. So if you see on the bottom there's a spot to hold, and then the top there is a nut. So just gonna have to dig in there and get those cotter pins off. Kind of hard to reach, but we'll get after it. And then you can see like the boot on that thing is pretty smoked, and then right here same thing. boot is pretty smoked right there. You know, you don't have to replace that kind of stuff, I don't suppose, but you know, if it's just kind of around the farm, around their acreage type setup. But you know, if you're gonna go way deep into the woods or something, maybe you should. So anyway, we'll just see what ends up getting replaced, but let's get this torn down some more. All right, so got the tie rods out. That was kind of a joke, but got that done. And now the next thing, I just gotta unplug the actual like four-wheel drive actuator. We'll just undo that connector right there, and then we'll start with right here, this bolt. We're gonna have to take out, and then there's this little bracket that goes across the top, and I think once we get this one out, and I think that's it. We'll find out, but then we can start wiggling this whole front end around. All right, so I got a 17 mil wrench on the other side of this. We'll see if it holds on there. Need something bigger. Okay, and then I'll take that one loose on the other side as well. All right, then one more bolt is right here, and it goes through to the other side that's holding this differential in. All right, with those bolts out now, I think next thing is just take this actual four-wheel drive actuator off. So there's just a couple bolts that hold it onto the actual differential. Okay, so basically you pry this transfer case up into here, like behind basically, so like this part right here is touching this little bracket right here, is touching this bracket, and you just pry, you know, you can kind of push it up in there, and that gets it tweaked, you know, bottom or back down, front up, and then that's enough that you can get the drive shaft disengaged. Now we'll just scoot this back and lay it on its right side. Alright, so we got this shaft undone, and you can see this U-joint is just shot, and so I gotta replace that. But the issue is the actual yoke has a nut behind it there, and so you can't just pop this thing out of here. It's not gonna, it doesn't look like it's gonna come out. That shaft is attached on there, so I think we're gonna have to do this U-joint service actually on the vehicle, so that's gonna kind of suck. Probably gonna end up pounding sockets and doing all sorts of crazy stuff, but anyway, let's get a game plan. Alright, so this is, I'm on it'd be the passenger side looking at this thing, and you can see this little clip right here. I have to push this out. There's a little clip right there. And I can get this chisel right on the side of it. Let's see if I can get it to move here. So if you see, there's this little keeper right here. And I can kind of, it's all covered in blown out grease because the joint went bad and there's grease coming out of it. Alright, there it is, got that one out. So I'm going to flip over to the other side. Alright, so I got the little retainers out. There was one sitting here and one sitting down here. And so now I'm going to just try and hammer the actual U-joint out of the yoke. Alright, well now this shaft is out. You can see this is the side that was connected to the motor. Not great. And then this is the other side. Probably could use changing as well. So we're going to get these this fully disassembled and get 2 new U-joints. Alright, so it's been a couple days. I've been working on this four-wheeler just off and on, and I ordered some side seals. This is for the output, each CV axle and the front end. So I ordered new seals, one for each side, same part number. And then I also ordered a new bladder, because this thing is like rock ass hard now. And you know how this works is, as this differential, say it was cool, it would have, you know, X amount of air in it or whatever, you filled it at whatever temperature. Then if it gets hot, that air inside of there and the fluid and everything expands, and it needs a place for that expansion to take place. So that's what this is for. Basically, this will like slightly telescope and get longer and fill like a balloon basically, and that will allow it to compensate for that change in volume. But being that this is so like rigid and not flexible, not plush anymore, I'm thinking what's happening is the buddy of mine that uses this, he uses it for pushing snow. And so you would start when it's cold and you operate while it's cold, but as you keep warming it up, it'll get hotter and hotter until I'm thinking what's happening is it's pushing oil past these seals. So kind of my 2 mental options were, well, you know, this is obviously closed so that when you're like really bogging, you know, this thing's like just about floating in water, this would be fully enclosed and there's no way for water to get inside. That's great. The other option would be to go to like a conventional like rear end on a modern vehicle, where it would have a little tube, you know, maybe 1 foot to 2 feet of tube, small breather hose that would allow it to vent and equalize that pressure. I'm told, you know, I was kind of reading on forums and stuff like that this system does work pretty good, but it just could be that this portion specifically is aging in the seals together. So I'm going to try and stick with the way it was designed, but I guess for the record, I think a tube or something like that would probably work out just fine. So I ordered a seal, a bladder, and then also an O-ring for right here where this seal's back in here. I thought maybe it could be pushing out past that. I'm not going to change the pinion seal because that's a whole nother deal that I don't really want to get involved with right now. I don't want to take this apart. If I end up taking this apart, it's going to cost more than the whole unit's worth. Just get a salvage one at that point. So real quick, I'm going to try and get these seals pulled out and the bladder removed. Alright, so now these seals are out, we'll just get the new ones, take them right like here, and just kind of tap them in. Still waiting on those to arrive. Alright, so it's been turned out weeks till these actually came in, the parts for the four-wheeler, and I wanted to order this shaft fully assembled. I wanted this to like come as one piece with this piece all put together. And anyway, that ended up being back ordered for months, so I called Audible to just the joints. But anyway, we have various pieces in here. We're gonna get these parts installed. Alright, so I got a bunch of different seals and things for this front differential. First, I got this O-ring right here. And then I can't put this actuator on just yet because it's tough to get this differential into the chassis. Okay, when you're pounding this in, you don't want to go right on top of this little lip right here because that can bend back. So we're going to get behind it and just kind of work this around. Okay, and then the last piece I got is this little bellows, and so basically I wanted to make sure that this was still like plush and not hard. This is not very scientific, but basically if I squeeze with like the same amount of force, you can see, like, I mean, it's pretty clear there is a difference here as to how plush this is. This one here is quite rigid. Alright, so I'm going to put this shaft together on the bench. One, because it's a little easier, and then also it's better to show. But what I did here is I marked the engine side, and that's a D for the differential side. So this little spline section goes into the differential, so these two go together. Pull the cap off like that. Don't lose any of the needles. Pull the other cap off. Set this down in here like this. Then take the cap. Get it started. Then the other cap. Okay, now it's started into both. Now if the end cap's pushed in enough, I can get those little retaining rings to slip in. Alright, well, I got this last part in. I probably would, doing it a second time, I would almost start with this piece, because this little fork part right here can actually spring out and move quite a bit, whereas this end one is, you know, much more rigid. So it was actually sprung together a little bit, so I had to use a channel locks to kind of open it a little bit so I could get that pin in. No big deal, it's done now, and you know, much more stiff than what it was, and it moves fine, so that's great. Now we can try and do this in a much more inconvenient location. Alright, so this differential is ready to go in. Also, the shaft is now fully installed. One thing you want to do is, when you're going to actually put this last joint, you got the shaft assembled, you want to put it into the vehicle. This little hole right here on this actual stub shaft can have like little dents and stuff from when you were removing the U-joint. So you want to go through there. I used a Dremel with like a little roller disc on it, just to kind of knock off any of the edges that are in there. That makes installation quite a bit easier, so you don't have to be banging on this thing. I'm not crazy about hammering on the on this shaft like against the direction that it rotates. So anyway, this is gonna kind of suck to get this differential in here now, because you know, this shaft would have had those sloppy U-joints when I took it apart, and it sucked doing it then. Now with everything being tight, boy, it's gonna be terrible, I imagine. So I'm just gonna get after it and start cussing. Alright, well, that took about, I don't know, 3 minutes to get in there. Way easier to get into place than it was to take out, and I guess I'm not really sure why that is. What I did was I really jackknifed this shaft so that it came out, it came towards the camera, and then it went forward a little bit, so you make it like an S. So then the back of this has to come towards you. Get that started in the back of the differential, then you can start kind of finagling it in there. And yeah, I mean, it took seriously about, I don't know, 3 minutes once I got the right location. So anyway, I'll start bolting this back into its place, and we're on the home stretch here. All right, well, I have an opportunity. I'm gonna get the shift actuator on here. It runs this little pin right here, and you can see there's a shift fork inside there. That's how that all works. So I'm gonna get that on here while I have still good access. Okay, so now it's installed. I got one screw here, One screw tucks right in there, and then there's one that's from the back that holds this all together. It's kind of tough to bolt this on, a little bit tight, a little bit cramped, but still way better than trying to get it in and out with this little box on there. I would just recommend anytime you gotta service this, just to take the actuator off of the differential. Next, I'm going to get the CV shafts ready and the suspension ready to get put back on here. Remember the one CV joint on this side, when I pulled it out, yanked on it or whatever, and it came undid inside the actual joint. So I ended up cutting that boot, and I just have to reseal that boot. Alright, so I got this CV joint. This is the one that I had to open up, and I pooped a bunch of the grease out. It spilled out on the ground, it spilled out on every piece of rag and clothing that I have, so it's more or less kind of empty-ish here. So I went and got some new grease that I can toss in here. So I'm just gonna basically tuck this CV boot up about as far as I can, and then just splick-ack as much as I can in here so that there's a good healthy amount in there. Then I'm going to put the clamp on top and we'll be sealed. So how these clamps work is you basically take these little teeth and you hook them right in those holes like that, and then the last thing you do is you pinch this part right here, and that takes up the extra little bit of slop. Okay, so I got this clamp about as tight as I can get it. You just squeeze right here, and I can't quite get another click out of it. So that's about right where we need to be. Now we can take this pliers and set it for good. Alright, well there it is. Nice and set up. Oh, that's not going anywhere. That looks great. Alright, not much to see here, but basically way in there is where the tie rods mount up, and so they have a little cotter pin on them too. And get those set up. And then also there's this little bracket right here that goes from kind of this little section of the frame to the other side. Must be a stiffener or some sort. So I'm just going to get it started with the bolts, and then I'm going to get the rest of the A-arm kind of set up, the suspension up in here. Right here, this piece. I'm gonna get that all put up in here because I want to tighten this down all together so that I don't, if I tighten here and then can't get your bolt through here, it's just gonna be annoying. No back and forth. So we're just gonna do it one time, and of course get our axle in there and be done. Okay, so there's already grease right here in this lip. It's pretty important. You want some grease in there so that this thing can slide real nice. Okay, so our axle's in here. I'm just gonna let it hang down here, droop a little bit. As long as I don't pull on it, we'll be all right. And then I'm going to start the upper control arm. So before I put that A-arm before I actually started bolting it up, I fed the axle through the knuckle. And so now I'm going to go ahead and do the lower control arm. Alright, so I just tightened the axle nut right here, and basically it calls for 200 pound-feet max, so I just ran it up to 150 and then just a little bit past that to get to my next alignment hole so that I could get my castle nut and cotter pin all situated. So anyway, that's good. I'll do that on the other side and then we'll put the wheels on. Alright, so now I'm going to refill the differential. And so what you want to do is take the top bolt, the one with the little white marking on it, take that loose, that is basically the fill hole, and then also this lower one right here, that is the actual like sight hole, so you know that you're filled up to the appropriate amount. So I'm going to take both those loose and start filling this thing up. So I have some 80/90 just regular stuff from Napa, and then I just take and nip the end off, and I put just a little piece of extension hose on here so I can actually get up in there and fill the differential. Alright, so I filled it, and you can see it's coming out here. It's dripping down into my pan. I let it basically filled it to where it was really coming out pretty good, and then it's been, you know, 5 minutes here, and now that drain has stopped, so everything is equalized. Now I'll just put in both of the plugs and we'll be good to go. Alright, well, just like that, this video is basically over. I took the four-wheeler out and did a quick rip on it. Got up to like 30 mile an hour, you know, just pinned it, and it blows the tires away in two-wheel drive. And then tried it in four-wheel drive and was hoping it wasn't going to wheelie, and it didn't, so that was good. And boy, it's a sweet machine, really quite fast for the size. It was a little sketchy almost, but a fun rig, and no noises. Our U-joints are holding together, that shaft, everything we put together on the front is good. It's not leaking. That's all stuff I like to see. I put it on a fresh new, you know, mostly non-spoiled piece of concrete here, so we'll look for fresh leaks in the morning, but other than that, I think it's good to go. So thanks for watching.